Welcome back to the deep dive. Okay, I want to start today with a little cognitive dissonance test for you. You ready?
I'm always ready. Go for it.
All right. Picture the Sunset Strip, maybe. 1989. You've got the neon, the spandex, the hairspray fumes literally punching a hole in the ozone layer.
Okay, I'm there.
You're visualizing a band from that time. What's the music you're hearing in your head?
Well, if we're going by the stereotype, it's probably 3 chords, a lot of shouting about girls or parties, and maybe a guitar solo that just goes on for way too long.
Right. Style over substance,
Yeah,
usually.
exactly.
But today, we're looking at a case study that just completely shatters that mold. We're talking about a guy who, he had the look for sure. The giant blonde hair, the peace signs, the cool glasses.
Well, he definitely had the look.
But musically, he was writing songs that honestly had more in common with, like, John Lennon or Elvis Costello than they did with Poison.
It is one of the most interesting mismatches in rock history. We are talking about Donnie Vie.
Born Donald Edwin Van Vel. And the mission for this deep dive is pretty specific. This isn't just a where are they now kind of thing.
No, this is more of a survival story, really.
It is. We're going to look at how you go from being this MTV darling on a major label like ATCO.
A huge label.
To a cult hero in Japan, and then eventually to distributing your life's work on a USB drive.
And that transition right there from the massive corporate machine to a little USB drive, that is, I think, the key to understanding the modern music industry. But to get there, we have to go back to the band that started it all.
Enuff Z'Nuff.
Enuff Z'Nuff.
Now, when I was looking at the research, I was really surprised by how strictly that glam label was stuck on them. Because Donnie Vie wasn't just the singer.
No, and that's the huge misconception here. In so many of those 80s bands, the singer was just the front man. His job was to look good, spin the mic stand, hype up the crowd.
Sure, and the guitar player wrote the riffs.
Right. But Donnie Vie,
Oh.
he was the architect.
He's a multi-instrumentalist, isn't he?
Yeah.
Piano, harmonica, guitar, and crucially, he was the primary songwriter. If you strip away all that, heavy 80s production, that big reverb on the snare drum, the bones of the songs are pure power pop.
Okay, let's pause there for a second. Power pop. We throw that term around a lot, but for someone listening who just thinks pop music, what's the difference? Why does that matter for Donnie Vie?
So think of power pop as the intersection of the Beatles and the Who. It's all about these really strong, catchy melodies, sweet harmonies, hooks that get stuck in your head.
Okay.
But it's played with the aggression and the volume of hard rock. It's like a sweet melody delivered with a really heavy hand.
So you have this guy, Donnie Vie, writing these Beatles-esque melodies, but he's packaged in the leather and the makeup of 1989.
And it worked. For a minute, anyway. This is the Rise era. Late 80s, they signed to ATCO Records, which, this is the big time.
And they had the hits, New Thing, and Fly High Michelle. Huge tracks. Just huge. They both hit the Billboard Mainstream Rock charts. I think Fly High Michelle even cracked the top 50 on the Hot 100. They were all over MTV.
And the notes say they played late night with David Letterman. That feels like, a specific cultural stamp of approval.
It absolutely was. Letterman was the gatekeeper of cool. If you were just some, dumb rock band, you usually didn't get that slot. Being on Letterman meant there was something musically legitimate happening there.
Right.
Paul Schaefer, the band leader, he loved that kind of melodic stuff.
But this is where the story usually ends for most people, right? The 90s show up, flannel replaces spandex, Nirvana happens, and all the hair bands get wiped out. It was like a meteor hitting the industry.
An extinction-level event, for sure.
But Enuff Z'Nuff, they didn't die.
You didn't. And this is where that songwriting depth really comes into play. Because Vie wasn't just relying on a gimmick. The music itself aged better than a lot of their peers. They put out Strength in 91, then Animals with Human Intelligence in 1993.
1993. Wow. That's deep into the grunge era. Releasing a melodic rock album full of harmonies in 1993 must have felt like swimming against a tsunami.
Commercially, it was really difficult, yeah. The labels were dropping 80s bands left and right. But critically, fans will tell you Animals with Human Intelligence is a masterpiece. It showed they could evolve. They weren't just stuck in 1989.
They just kept grinding. You've got Tweak in 95, Terraphernalia in 99. The amount of output is it's wild. The notes say 16 international releases over a 25-year career.
That's a real working class approach to being a rock star. You don't just stop because the stadium lights go out. You keep writing. And remember, Vie is writing almost all of this. It's not a committee. It's him.
But that kind of grind has to take a toll. And this brings us to the first major pivot point in this whole story. the split?
May 2013.
Yeah, this really struck me. This isn't just a singer leaving a band to go to rehab or something. This is the guy who wrote the songs, the guy whose voice was the sound, leaving the brand he built, and the way he did it.
The best of luck message.
Yeah, talk about that. It just feels so cold. Or maybe just final.
I think it's resignation. He sent a message to the remaining guys, Chip Z'Nuff, the bassist, and the new singer, Johnny Monaco, and basically just said, good luck, I'm out. It wasn't a break, it was a clean break.
But here's the paradox. He leaves in 2013, but the band game, Enuff Z'Nuff, keeps putting out albums. Clown's Lounge in 2016, Brainwash Generation in 2020, and they're using his material.
That's right. Clown's Lounge, for instance, was mostly built from archival demos and unreleased tracks that Vie had written years before.
So he's physically gone, he's checked out, but his ghost is still funding the whole operation.
And that raises this fascinating philosophical question about bands, doesn't it? If the main songwriter and the voice leaves, but the songs are still there, is it still the band? Or is it just a tribute act with the original logo?
It's the Ship of Theseus paradox, but with hairspray and guitars.
Exactly. It creates this weird dynamic where the brand outlives the artist. But Donnie, he didn't just go home and wait for royalty checks. He'd already been plotting his own path.
He started the solo work before he even officially left, right?
He did. Just Enough. Came out way back in 2003. Which, looking back, was a pretty clear sign that he needed an outlet that the band couldn't give him.
Let's dig into his solo album titles for a minute, because I feel like they're a window into his whole mindset. You do not name an album Wrapped Around My Middle Finger unless you're trying to send a very specific message.
That was 2012, right before he officially quit. That title just screams frustration. It's so defiant. It's almost punk rock, really. It's him saying, I'm doing this my way, and if you don't like it, well.
Here's the finger.
Exactly.
It feels like a reaction to the industry, doesn't it?
Right.
After being told what to do for 20-plus years.
Oh, absolutely. The music industry is brutal to aging stars. They just want you to play the hits. They don't want your new art. That album title is a total rejection of that whole idea.
And then, just 2 years later, 2014, he releases the White Album.
Which is the complete opposite end of the spectrum.
Yeah, I mean, that's brazen. You have to have some serious confidence to name your album the White Album. That is sacred ground.
It is, but it's also a statement of his lineage. He's telling everyone, stop comparing me to Mötley Crüe. Compare me to the Beatles. He's trying to frame his own legacy. He sees himself as a songwriter first, not a glam rocker.
That's so interesting because glam was all about the visual. But by calling it the White Album, he's stripping away all the visuals and just saying, listen to the song.
Precisely. And that commitment to the craft, it seems to pay off in very specific places. We have to talk about Japan.
Ah, yes, the Japanese market. So his 2019 album, Beautiful Things, it charts at number 230 in Japan. Now, to an American listener who's used to top 10 or bust, 230 might sound, irrelevant. Is that even good?
For an independent artist, it is a huge deal.
Yeah.
You have to understand the context. Japan has this really unique relationship with melodic rock. They value melody and technical skill over whatever the current trend is.
So while America moved on to grunge and nu metal and whatever else, Japan sort of kept the flame alive for this style of songwriting.
Exactly. Being big in Japan is a cliche, but it's also real economics. It means you have a fan base that's loyal, that buys physical media CDs are still huge over there, and that appreciates the craft. Charting there means you're still a viable international artist.
Right. It means thousands of people actually went out and bought your record in another country.
And the songs on Beautiful Things tracks like Instant Karma, they prove he hasn't lost that touch. It's that same DNA. Catchy, melodic, a little bit sad. He's still chasing that perfect song. He's not just resting on Fly High Michelle.
But he's not just chasing the perfect song. He's also having a lot of fun with side projects. And I had to bring this up because the name made me laugh out loud. Guilt and Shame.
Yes, the side project.
They released an album in 2018 called International Jagoffs.
It is fantastic.
It's so self-deprecating. It feels like he's totally in on the joke. Like, he knows the industry is absurd. He knows his place in it is a little weird, so why not just call the album International Jagoffs?
It shows a real lack of pretension. A lot of artists from that era take themselves so seriously. They're desperately trying to hold on to that rock god mystique. Vie seems to have just let all of that go. He's collaborating, doing live albums with a project called V8. He's just playing music.
Which brings us to the how. How do you get this music to people in the 2020s when you're not on a major label anymore? We've gone from vinyl to cassette to CD, and now the USB drive.
This is one of the interesting parts of his recent career. In 2021, he releases the Donnie Vie Collection.
On a USB stick.
On a USB stick. Now, just think about the symbolism of that for a second.
It's basically a data dump of his entire career.
It is, but it's also total control. Back in the ATCO days, the label controlled everything. They decided how many CDs went to Tower Records. They controlled the packaging, the liner notes. With a USB drive, the artist is literally handing you their digital soul.
It's direct-to-consumer in its purest form.
And it allows for so much volume. You can't fit a whole career of demos and B-sides and rarities on one CD. The USB drive is the format for the true archivist. It says, here is everything. If you're a real fan, take it all.
It's just adapting. And frankly, it's really smart. If your fan base is that diehard, they don't want a 10-track album. They want the whole vault.
Exactly. And Vie has a deep vault. We're talking compilations like Extra Strength from 2007, The Best of Donnie Vie in 2015. He gets that his catalog is his biggest asset. He's repackaging his legacy for the people who actually care, instead of trying to convince 16-year-olds on TikTok to listen to him.
Which is a mistake so many legacy artists make. They're always chasing the new shiny thing.
Right. Vie is just doubling down on his core. You like my songs? Here is every song I've ever written on a little stick.
So when you look at this whole arc from the Aquanet haze of 1989 to selling USB drives in 2021, what's the lesson here? If I'm an artist or just anyone trying to sustain a career in a world that's always changing, what does Donnie Vie's story teach me?
I think the lesson is that image. Well, image has an expiration date, but skill does not.
Break that down.
The image of Enuff Z'Nuff, the glam, the hair, all that, it had a shelf life. It basically expired around 1992. If Donnie Vie had just been a pretty face, his career would have ended right there. He'd be managing a bar somewhere today.
But the skill, the songwriting, that's what held up.
That's it. He transitioned from being a rock star, which is really a performance of a personality, to being a working songwriter, which is a trade. He found new markets, like in Japan. He found new formats, like the USB drive. He didn't stubbornly try to stay the guy from 1989. He evolved his business model, but he kept his musical core the same.
So it's about being flexible with the method, but staying stubborn about the art.
That is a perfect way to put it.
Before we wrap up, I want to leave our listeners with that thought we touched on earlier. It's something that's really sticking with me.
The soul of the band question.
Yeah. We see so many legacy bands on tour now with what, maybe one original member, sometimes none. In this case, you have Enuff Z'Nuff touring and releasing music, but the guy who wrote the hits, the guy whose voice defined their whole sound, is on his own selling USB drives.
It makes you ask yourself, what are we actually a fan of? Are we fans of the logo, or are we fans of the human being who made the art in the first place?
So next time you buy a concert ticket to see a classic rock band, maybe take a look at the liner notes first. You might find the brain of the operation is actually somewhere else entirely. Maybe recording an album called International Jagoffs.
And honestly, that might just be the album worth listening to.
Thanks for taking the deep dive with us. We'll see you next time.